School Culture for Differentiation by Jacqueline Simon. As defined by Mary Dosch and Margaret Zidon in the International Journal of Teaching and Learning in Higher Education, differentiated instruction is a teacher mindset that all learners respond to instruction differently. Think back to your experience in school. Was there a subject that you struggled with? It may have been difficult because of the manner in which it was taught to you. By using differentiation, you're ensuring that your students have many opportunities to learn. A great way to understand how to differentiate would be to focus on 3 effective ways. The first way is student readiness. Is the student prepared or over-prepared for new information? What's their background knowledge or past experiences? What's their skill level of the related content? The second way is student interest. What motivates the student? What is relevant to their lives or what's important to them? Let's pretend that this student loves Pokemon. So by using student interest, this could be as simple as referencing something they like Pokemon, or in a word problem, or providing extensive articles about creating a video game for ELA. The third way is the learning profile. What are the students' preferences? Do they like independent or small group work? How do they express themselves? What's their gender, their culture? Which of Gardner's multiple intelligences do they use? By understanding the students better, teachers can prepare for the most common types of struggling students, according to Hani Morgan in Maximizing Student Success with Differentiated Learning, which are: the students are lacking basic skills, which relates to student readiness, an unmotivated student, which relates to student interest in their learning profile, and a high-achieving student, also relating to student readiness. Before further discussing the basics of differentiation, let's focus on the impact of it and what types of students it works for. Differentiation works for every student. These are 3 different peer-reviewed journal articles that support differentiation, which can work in a variety of classrooms and for all types of students. Dosch and Zidon studied students in higher education that were provided differentiation in their college course. After the study was completed, Dosch and Zidon state, unanimously, the students stated that they appreciated being able to choose how to complete their assignments according to their own learning styles and felt that choice allowed them to better learn the information. This provides proof that students of many ages benefit from differentiation. Morgan expressed the importance of using differentiation in the classroom and that technology was a vital tool that should not be shunned by teachers. Morgan explains, although many educators are critical of technology implementation and question whether the need to use digital resources is based on scientific evidence, recent brain research supports the idea that these resources benefit students and that exposure to technology affects learning favorably. This explains the importance of relating to students and using different approaches to have the best impact on them. Alice Ann Darrow wrote about using differentiation for special education students in a music class. She references making modifications for students with academic as well as physical disabilities to share with this specific class with all students. She explains how best to achieve music education for all. Teaching multi-level or alternative curricula can be facilitated best through learning centers set up in the music classroom. By using an idea typically found in a general education classroom, Darrow shows that differentiation works well with all subjects, even in specials. Based on the examples from the previous slide, it is clear that differentiating as much as possible is best. In regards to student readiness levels and challenging materials, it is vital to differentiate for both. According to Hani Morgan, if learners become frustrated because the content is too difficult, they release too much non-adrenaline, which leads to withdrawal or inappropriate conduct. Morgan is explaining how when there is no differentiation in curriculum, students who are not prepared will not learn the intended material, or may even exhibit some undesired behaviors, which would cause disruption for those who are learning at that level. Morgan further explains that by additionally not providing more challenging work for advanced students, this will cause too few chemicals to be released in their brain, which is also a damaging learning experience as well. Therefore, to best serve our students, teachers must differentiate for student readiness. It is very common to have about 3 different levels of readiness. Typically they are below grade level, at grade level, or above grade level. In addition to differentiating for student readiness, one must prepare for a variety of student interests in order to keep students motivated in their own learning. Morgan states, teachers can emphasize student interest by allowing time for students to participate in independent study, a method of teaching that allows students to study what they are especially interested in. Another strategy is to show students how a subject matter relates to a topic in which students are interested. Because there is such variety in student interests, it is not possible to include every single interest for each student every lesson. But it is possible to find things a lot of students are interested in, or relate one different student interest each lesson. Differentiated instruction is not only about student readiness and interests. It also incorporates Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, or the manner in which students learn. There are 8 multiple intelligences based on how students learn: logical mathematical, verbal linguistics, musical, visual spatial, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalist. Morgan claims, using a variety of intelligences when providing instruction, rather than just 1 or 2, is important because different students learn in different ways and through many intelligences. Morgan is explaining that it is important to differentiate lessons to provide different outlets for students to learn by means of these intelligences. For example, if there is a lesson on history, students should be able to learn and show what they have learned through means of these intelligences. It is not an accurate representation of students' learning to expect all students to write an essay because not every student learns through the verbal linguistic intelligence. Students usually rely on the intelligence that is their strength, which is why it's so important to differentiate for as many intelligences as possible. According to Carol Ann Tomlinson, one of the most influential people in reference to differentiation, the definition of differentiating content is, differentiating content can be thought of in 2 ways. First, in differentiating content, we can adapt what we teach. Second, we can adapt or modify how we give students access to what we want them to learn. This means that teachers need to prepare different things to teach, like referenced in student interests, and modification of access to materials that we want students to learn, like mentioned in student readiness levels. For example, there are many aspects to the concept of symbolism in a text. Based on readiness levels, some students should get less complex examples of symbolism, while others should get very complex examples. Some examples of differentiating content includes using varied texts, like mentioned with the symbolism example, learning contracts, which provide a list of a specific set of skills and components that need to be completed, and graphic organizers. Tomlinson defines process as, when students encounter new ideas, information, or skills, they need time to run the input through their own filters of meaning. As they try to analyze, apply, question, or solve a problem using the material, they have to make sense of it before it becomes theirs. Process usually refers to a sense-making activity. The purpose of activities should be to further student knowledge or understanding of a topic or make sense of something. Some examples of process would include journals, learning centers, which is a great way to differentiate and allow every student to access each center, and think, pair, share, where a student will think about a topic or new information, pair up with another student, and share their thoughts. This can help provide new insights for all students and further understanding of a topic. The last type of differentiation is to differentiate a product. Tomlinson describes the differentiation of product. Product assignments should help students, individually or in groups, rethink, use, and extend what they have learned over a long period of time, a unit, a semester, or even a year. Tomlinson argues that many students do well with differentiation of products because it provides other opportunities to show what they have learned. Many students also do better on differentiated products than on a written test. However, even if products are differentiated, one must incorporate all the core expectations for all students. This means that the learning goals should be shown no matter what the product is produced. Some examples of differentiation of products are creating a museum exhibit, writing and performing a musical, presentation of materials either orally, like a speech, visually, like a 3D model, or written, like an essay. Teaching the same curriculum to all learners is very important. Although there will be a multitude of different learners and levels in your classroom, maintaining the same curriculum, even if modified, is a vital part of teaching. In order to achieve this, there are some suggestions for modification that can be used in every lesson to accommodate multiple learners. Provide information to be understood through multiple means, or give students different ways to view the information being provided, especially during whole group instruction. Some ways to do this are to project information on the board. By projecting information on the board, it can be large enough for students to see, and those with visual impairments can view it. Projecting on the board also provides students with hearing needs to understand the information without relying solely on hearing, which may be difficult for them. It also allows students to read the information, which is beneficial for students that prefer learning through a verbal linguistic intelligence. Another example is providing guided notes, which will help students that are struggling with content so that they are better prepared to find important information from the lesson to reference. It is also beneficial for verbal linguistic students, as they often prefer to read and write. Another suggestion is to read the texts out loud, or provide audiobooks. Some audiobooks can be found online or even at the local or school library. By giving another way, listening instead of just reading, of obtaining information from the text, students who struggle with reading will be better able to understand the text and improve their reading skills. This will also benefit ELL students, students with limited vision, or students with reading disabilities like dyslexia. Another way to modify curriculum for multiple learners is to incorporate technology. Students relate very well to technology because it is something that they grew up with, and it relates to their life and their interests. Technology is a great way to further modify curriculum for different student needs by having the ability to enlarge text for vision needs, provide audiobooks, access research information for a passion project, or watch educational videos like Bill Nye or National Geographic. For modifying curriculum for students with special education services, continue to use the everyday modifications outlined on the previous slide. Always adhere to the student's IEP or individualized education program. Thoroughly read the entire document, read their goals, and provide opportunities every day for students to practice or achieve them. Provide all SDIs or specially designed instruction listed in the IEP for every lesson. Consult with the special education teacher and any additional services listed for collaboration or ideas on how to modify the curriculum specially for this student. For example, if the student gets speech services, consult the speech therapist before making all the students give a public speech to the class. If the student has a PCA or personal care assistant, use them to help with content, process, and product. All aspects of the IEP must be followed, as it is a legal document specifically designed for this student. In addition to following the IEP, continue to use the standard curriculum, just with modifications. Each child with an IEP will need different modifications, but some ideas to keep in mind for modifications would include using assistive technology like a microphone for those who have hearing difficulty, create enlarged texts for students with vision needs, and keeping the classroom accessible to all students, especially those with a physical disability or physical assistance like a walker or a wheelchair. No tight corners or high-placed materials. Always encourage self-advocacy for all students, especially those in special education, as the goal for many students is independence. Being able to ask for help is a skill and needs to be taught and practiced. Therefore, try to create situations where a student might need to request for help from a peer or staff as practice. This also helps students learn social skills. Make sure you are aware of each student's sensitivities, especially those with autism. Many students with autism do not like crowds, loud noises, or unpredictable environments. Try to provide small group instruction or individual work time. Never force group work. Keep the classroom at an acceptable volume, and maybe dim the lights if possible to de-stress. Always ensure there is a consistent routine as well. Always use student strengths to help facilitate learning. If a student does really well with a sticker as a reward after each completed activity, use the sticker as a reward. Lastly, ensure that the challenges are appropriate for each student. Do not overwhelm or underwhelm students during activities. To modify the curriculum for students in a functional curriculum program, again, always adhere to the student's IEP. Follow all the SCIs and collaborate with the special education teacher or related services team as needed. Use the PCA to help the student achieve their goals and complete their tasks in the modified curriculum if the PCA is provided. Usually the main goal of students in a functional curriculum is to have independence, occupational skills, and peer social interactions in the general education classes. Therefore, focus a lot on the social aspect of the lesson for students in functional curriculum. It is best to encourage group work to facilitate peer interactions. Also, prompting the students to ask questions to students and staff will help their conversation skills and ability to request for help if needed. Try to incorporate as many occupational skills specified in their IUP goals, such as cutting paper into sections or shapes, counting items to fill up a bag, or handing out a certain number of materials, sorting items into bins, following step-by-step instructions to practice for independent living, like cooking instructions or job instructions. When modifying for gifted students, again, adhere to the student's IEP goals and SDIs. Provide opportunities for this student to be challenged and to work with other students of similar advanced level to further facilitate their learning. However, give the student opportunities for peer teaching as well. Use their strengths to help others at times, but do not exploit their advanced level by depending on them to teach others all the time. Make the peer teaching a mutually beneficial experience for both students by allowing the gifted student to teach another student on a topic they excel at, and then give the other student the same opportunity to teach the gifted student something they do well with, like drawing, sports, or a foreign language. By allowing both students to teach the other, the gifted student does not feel exploited, the other student feels valued, and both further advance their understanding of the topic that they taught the other. Provide the gifted student additional challenges, but not additional work. By adding more work, the student may act out or feel the teacher is being unfair, in turn making them less motivated. To provide more challenges, make the concepts more complex. Add more steps to push their thinking a bit more. Real-life scenarios are a great way to challenge students. It promotes problem solving, research, and possibly peer consultation. It also provides real-life experience on real problems. Additionally, prompting connections to other subjects or concepts further challenges the student to think about things in relation to other ideas. Additionally, collaborate with the gifted education teacher to provide appropriate modifications and connections specific for that student's learning and goals. In addition to modifications, another idea is using Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, which was originally associated with architecture, like wheelchair ramps, elevators, or automatic doors. However, these designs may have been originally for those with physical disabilities, but have been beneficial to others as well. For example, wheelchair ramps on sidewalks benefit more than just people who use a wheelchair. It's also beneficial for people with a stroller or people that use a walker. Similarly, UDL in education benefits more than those with diverse needs. It benefits all students. However, UDL is not the same as differentiated instruction, although they work well together. The purpose of UDL is to create most inclusive classroom as possible by preparing for all types of learners ahead of time instead of modifying a lesson for students after the lesson's created. The way to prepare for a UDL lesson would be to incorporate as many means of representation as possible or different ways students can get the information. Maybe some will read a text while others watch a video or others listen to a lecture. There should be many ways to express the information that was learned. Like discussed in the differentiation of product, provide different ways for students to show what they've learned before you implement the lesson. Also, engage students in different ways. There is a huge focus on student interest in differentiation as well as UDL. Prepare different topics for students to learn the same goals. For example, if preparing sentences to correct grammar mistakes, create sentences about things students like to motivate them more. The goal of UDL is to remove as many barriers, physical and academic, as possible so students can learn the best way for them. By incorporating ideas for all types of learners in the original lesson plan, all students will benefit because there are more choices to succeed. The way to plan a UDL lesson is to first think about the student's needs and then how to accommodate all of those needs without hindering the learning of any other student. This may sound difficult, but the focus is on adding many layers to the lesson to provide students different paths to reach the same goal, which is learning the curriculum. Some examples of ideas used in UDL would be audiobooks being used for students with vision needs may also benefit students with dyslexia, students who prefer auditory learning, or students with a lower than average reading level. Another example is small group instruction for students with similar academic levels. The benefits of varied leveled peer teaching was discussed earlier, but the benefits of small group instruction are also important to utilize at times as well. Small groups of similar academic levels helps the teacher focus on a specific set of skills for that group, but also benefits students who get overstimulation from large groups. It also encourages students in the functional curriculum to participate in social studies with peers. Another idea to focus on would be behavior and social skills in a classroom. Maintaining appropriate behavior, monitoring behavior, and embedding social skills is an important aspect to every lesson. Some students may need additional behavior supports which can be embedded into UDL or modified for differentiated instruction. Some examples that benefit those with more behavioral needs include a learning contract which specifies which learning goals need to occur by a specific date, or a behavior contract, which specifies which type of behavior needs to occur at a specific time in order to achieve a reward. The goal of differentiation is to have the content being learned that fit the students in your class. Many students that exhibit undesired behavior in the classroom stems from inappropriate materials or boredom. If the material is too easy, the student will most likely act out for stimulation. If the material is too difficult, the student will most likely refuse or try to claim that it's baby work, so others do not think they cannot do it. Differentiation creates materials that should be more appropriately challenging based on the student's readiness. Additionally, content should be presented in many ways to satisfy the multiple intelligences and a variety of interests. By differentiating, students should be less likely to exhibit inappropriate behaviors in the classroom. Monitoring behavior can be helpful in many different students, although it is most common for those students that have it specified in their IEP. This can be students with a diagnosis of anything from an anxiety disorder, oppositional defiance disorder, also known as ODD, or autism. However, there will be times when monitoring behavior is necessary that is not required by an IEP. This would be during response to intervention, or RTI. RTI is a school-wide behavior support that's purpose is to help all students use appropriate and expected behavior. If your school does not have school-wide behavior support, you can create a class-wide behavior support. These supports should be clear, concise, and consistent so students always know what to expect. These universal behaviors supports are meant to encourage the majority of students to exercise expected behavior. This is called Tier 1 in RTI. Tier 2 encompasses additional behavior supports to the universal supports. This is meant for students who are at risk of exhibiting undesired behaviors that will help decrease the frequency and intensity of those behaviors. Some ideas associated with Tier 2 would include a social skills club or peer supports. The last tier, Tier 3, is the most common type of behavior monitoring because many students in Tier 3 have an IEP. Tier 3 consists of individualized programming for the few students that did not succeed during the first two tiers of RTI. The goals of the individualized programming is to reduce the frequency and intensity of problem behaviors. This will be specified in things like a functional behavior analysis, or FBA, and the SDIs from their IEP. Tracking these behaviors should be done at least every hour. It is usually done in a behavior chart, which can be created in collaboration with a special education teacher or a board-certified behavior analyst. Monitoring these behaviors are crucial to student success in their behavior goals, as it shows what is working and not working for that student. In addition to behavior monitoring, embedding social skills into lessons is an important aspect that should always be added. By embedding social skills into lessons, all students will benefit, but especially those students in Tiers 2 and 3. Some examples of ways to embed social skills will include small group projects, literature circles, peer teaching, think, pair, share, turn and talk, and classroom debates. Other than encouraging social aspects to lessons, teachers should use everyday reminders to further embed social skills into lessons. A great way to think of the daily social skills reminders is to brainstorm about things that are important to a successful professional life. For example, reminding students to maintain eye contact is very important, but also teach them when to look at a person, not to stare, and to maintain eye contact for an appropriate amount of time. Another example of a good daily reminder is using an appropriate volume when speaking. Explain the difference between having a conversation in a library and having one at a concert. Some situations may require a louder voice, like a concert or giving a presentation, but other situations may require a quieter voice, like the library or grocery store. Lastly, make sure to focus on students taking turns when speaking. In many cultures, it is considered rude to interrupt, while others may accept an interjection as showing that one is listening. Show positive examples of having a conversation in specific places. Students may have a different type of conversation with a peer than with the principal, for example. However, make sure to make all examples relevant to the student, even if preparing them for a more professional setting. Now that we have discussed the importance of creating a school culture for differentiation, here are some final thoughts. Differentiation should be used in every lesson. Ensure your differentiation is based on student readiness, interests, and learning profiles. Don't make differentiation based on what you want, based on what the students need. You can differentiate a lesson based on content, which is what and how the students learn the new material, the process or what activities are used for students to make sense of the new information, and the product, or how the student shows what they have learned. In addition to differentiation, creating UDO lessons can be very beneficial to create less modifications later, as it prepares for all types of learners. Ensure that you always embed social skills into every lesson as well, as it is especially helpful for those students in Tier 2 and 3 of RTI. Most importantly, always adhere to each student's IEP. Read all the SDIs, their goals, make sure you're keeping their behavior monitoring, and collaborate with other teachers as needed. On the next page, you will find my reference page. Thank you for watching this presentation about creating a school culture on differentiation.